What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson, back from my trip, and pretty good timing because today was Sean Payton's introductory press conference. So I've got some takeaways from it, some reactions and whatnot, including a subtle jab at Nathaniel Hackett and his own quarterback, Russell Wilson. So we're going to jump into a lot of the things he really harped on, which was details and winning. If you're a Broncos fan, you got to be pretty excited about that. But I want to really start the show off with maybe the most exciting quote that came out of it, because a lot of these press conferences can be a bit dry. You know what I mean? But the last part, Sean Payton saved the best for last. So he was asked about, players having a private coach and, stuff like that. And if that would be tolerated or be allowed under his reign. And wink, wink, he's talking about Russell Wilson having his own private QB coach, Jake Heaps, working at the Broncos facility last year with Hackett as the head coach. Here's what Sean Payton said about this on private coaches. That's foreign to me. That's not going to take place here. I'm unfamiliar with it, but our staff will be here, our players will be here, and that'll be it. So I think Russell Wilson can expect a lot of changes. And he was pushing and advocating to get Sean Payton to Denver. And maybe he knows what that entails, including, no more private QB coach and whatnot, hanging out in the facility with the team, but not being an actual Denver Broncos coach here. We've got some more takeaways. I'm going to show a lot of tweets to you guys and kind of just get some quotes out of them. So this one coming in from Kyle Newman over at the Denver Post, who said, Sean Payton on turnaround and game management in 2023. I don't anticipate the crowd having to count down the 30-second clock. Dang, somewhere Hackett is sitting in New Jersey, game planning to try and get something out of Zach Wilson, and he is catching strays from Sean Payton, and personally, I'm loving it. So if you like it too, like today's video. If you are fired up after Sean Payton saying, don't worry about the fans having to count down the play clock, we can handle that when we're at home, by the way. Something, we know the last guy really struggled with here. Some more interesting notes and news rumors to get to and whatnot here. So George Stoa tweeted out that we have the perfect coach in Sean Payton, said Broncos owner Greg Penner. So there is a lot of momentum, of course, coming from the Broncos ownership about getting their guy, which we're going to look at later on in the in this video from the introductory press conference, where there were some reports of maybe Sean Payton wasn't the guy, right? Maybe he wasn't the number one, and it was someone like DeMeco Ryans or Jim Harbaugh. Definitely didn't come across that today. Now, we also have to remember they're not going to go in front of the mic and say, we love Sean Payton. He was our number 3 candidate. No, that's not going to happen either, okay? This one coming in from team reporter Eric Delilah, who tweeted out, owner and CEO Greg Penner on the Broncos extensive search. We wanted to take our time. We wanted to get it right, and we did. So if you're wondering what took so long and why Hackett was fired on the 26th and the head coach wasn't announced for another month later, here's kind of your reason why. I don't have a good reason other than I think the trade probably took a little bit longer to get the details down than just a phone call or two, right? It sounds like it stretched over a couple of days. Here are some other takeaways I've got early on from this press conference, and we'll break it down throughout the video. Sean Payton said his first interview with the Broncos lasted 4.5 hours. He was also very impressed that when the first day he was able to do an interview, the Broncos were there for breakfast, right? They wanted Sean Payton immediately. Now, Payton also emphasized how important ownership is to him and winning. If you watched or listened to the press conference, you would have noticed the word winning was said a ton. That is clearly a very big priority for him, as it is for all head coaches, but it's still great to hear because this is a fan base that has seen very little of it since the 2015 Super Bowl. Now, he also really harped on how great of a relationship it is between the head coach and the GM, and how he had a great one in New Orleans with Mickey Loomis, and he expects to have the same with George Paton. In fact, George was a popular character in this introductory press conference. A lot of comments and a lot of encouraging things were said from Sean Payton on George Paton, okay? Now, we've got more takeaways and reactions to get to in just a second, but our bosses at Chat Sports today I want to know, how likely are you to recommend this show to another Broncos fan or someone else who's interested in the Denver Broncos? Scale it 1 to 10. If you're an 8, 9, or 10, really appreciate you tuning in frequently to the show. Maybe send it in a Broncos group chat you're in to other friends who like the Denver Broncos. Now, if you're a 7 or below, let us know what we can improve on. Always want to hear your feedback, want to know what we can do more of or less of. So let me know in the comment section below how likely you are to recommend this show to someone else. Moving on here, some other quotes and tweets to get to. This one coming in from Kyle Newman as well. Sean Payton on turnaround in his first year after disastrous 5-12 in 2022. It's realistic for our fan base to expect a completely different type of culture, and it's realistic for them to expect for us to win. So, more stuff that just kind of gets you kind of drunk on the Sean Payton Kool-Aid. There's never been a head coach who hasn't had a great introductory press conference where people walk away thinking that's going to be a 17-0 team next year. But this one was a home run of all the home runs, I would say. There's been some great ones out there, don't get me wrong. But Sean Payton, if you watched it, the guy just sort of commanded the room, right? He walked in, no notes, talked a little bit about his family and his background in his opening statement, but he commanded the room, and he looked like a real competent leader, which was sorely missed last year. Let's be honest here. And then there's this. Sean Payton talking about how he's going to turn around a 5-12 team. Well, he's done it once before. Go back to the New Orleans Saints in 2005 before Payton arrived in the Big Easy. They went 3-13. In year one, he got them to the NFC Championship game on a 10-6 record. Then some down years, and that was a bit of a knock against him while he was in New Orleans, which is he had Drew Brees, and you had probably one too many 7 or 9, 8-8, 9-7 seasons. But you got to give him credit. He turned it around real fast in New Orleans. Now, we've got more to get to in just a second, but first I want to share some words with our sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by Fume. Now, we all have bad habits we're trying to kick, and we know how hard it can be to kick those bad habits. Now, our sponsor, Fume, is on a mission to accelerate humanity's breakup from the bad habits that consume far too many of us. Fume is a natural diffusive device that uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. Now, I did not expect much of Fume when I got it, but the minty sensation is powerful and it can really hit the back of the throat as well. Now, the Journey Pack comes with 3 unique flavors. You've got white cranberry, maple pepper, and crisp mint. So, you get all of those packs when you go over to tryfume.com/chatsports. Now, as I was saying, Fume is not a vape. It's a non-electronic device designed to transform your negative habits. The easiest way to stop a bad habit is to switch to a positive one, and Fume is designed perfectly to do just that. Head to tryfume.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Now, I included a link, by the way, for Fume in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's check out this tweet coming in from Zach Stevens, who said, Greg Penner said that they were locked in with Sean Payton 5 to 6 days before the news actually came out. Remember, the news came out on this past Wednesday, so you go back 5 days before then. We're talking Friday, Saturday of the previous week. NFC Championship and AFC Championship games were going on then. The reason it was delayed is because the trade had to then be executed. Penner and George Paton struck down the idea that they were going for DeMeco Ryans right before landing Payton. And that's kind of a subtle blow to the NFL Network. I think it was Ian Rappaport who reported that the Broncos were on the phone trying to get DeMeco Ryans hours before they announced Sean Payton, kind of like the Russell Wilson-Aaron Rodgers trade day. So we got some conflicting rumors right there. I'm not shocked that they're denying that claim, because it'd be a bit awkward to have Sean Payton be there and say, we are trying to get someone else the day of. But we've got that to work with here. Now, the idea of the trade taking 5 to 6 days, probably a bit longer than we most anticipated. Here's the Sean Payton trade, in case you don't remember. Denver gave up a first-round pick number 29 that they got from Miami, who got from San Francisco, and a future second-rounder for Sean Payton and a future third. So Denver does have a first-round pick next year, but they're without a second, and they do have 2/3 now in 2024. Let's check out this next part here on Sean Payton on if the Broncos were his top option. He said, "What I was looking for, I felt existed in one place. Based on my exposure with other teams, this was the opportunity that I was interested in, and I know I was the coach they were interested in." So, again, of course, we're going to get a lot of rah-rah stuff from an introductory press conference, but if all this is true, then it seems like they were a decent match from the start, at least from the first day they interviewed him. Maybe before that interview day, Jim Harbaugh or D'Amico Ryans or someone else really was a top candidate of theirs. But to me, if we're following the breadcrumbs of what they're saying, it sounds like it was a match made in heaven. Now, I like this next picture because it's a picture of Sean Payton wearing an orange tie on Fox before the NFC and AFC championship games. And I was going to talk about this in probably decent length on Wednesday right before the hiring or the trade went down. And then, of course, the trade went down, and I didn't get to do too much detail on it. But I was wondering, Sean Payton is wearing an orange tie. A lot of people were wondering, are we connecting dots right there? Sounds a little outlandish. No, it wasn't. George Stoa asked, "Hey, was there anything to you wearing an orange tie?" Asking the hard-hitting questions right there. And he said, "Yeah, I was making a subtle reference to where I'd be going next." So, for all of you that say we're crazy out there for reading into stuff too much, this is a point for the crazies, because Sean Payton wearing an orange tie last week did signal that he was coming to Denver. So, point for us. Now, we are the only channel, I think, that went live as fast as we did when the Sean Payton news broke. So if you're looking for a Broncos YouTube channel to keep you informed and entertained all offseason long, this is the spot for you. From free agency to potential more trades coming, and of course the draft in April, we are your home for all things Broncos. So if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and do so. Okay, some other takeaways I had that I wanted to share. At the end, they kind of asked, "Hey, who you got in the Super Bowl?" Because he has to work with Fox this weekend for the Super Bowl, and he said he's picking the Eagles to win because F them Chiefs. And that was music to Broncos Country ears, right? You love to see your new head coach buy in on the division and understand, hey, it might be new to the block, but I know that people here hate the Chiefs, the Raiders, and whatever Chargers fans out there exist. So I'm one of you now, F the Chiefs, and that's going to be important to having success in Denver. Now, he also said that Latavius Murray, who he overlapped with in New Orleans, I believe, reached out to Sean Payton. Yeah, he did. Around the Christmas time. Maybe it was the day after Christmas when someone was fired. Probably was before then, though, because he knew someone would get fired. And he said, "What do you think about coming to Denver?" And Sean Payton said, "You might want to, just watch what you wish for. Santa might bring it to you." And sure enough, Sean Payton coming to Denver now does make you think Latavius Murray does have a pretty good chance of coming back next year, despite his age, being a 30-plus-year-old running back, because he was this team's best running back last season, and he wasn't even on the roster to start the year, okay? And then, once more, I really want to hit on, if you watch the press conference, your biggest takeaways from it was he's a detail-oriented guy. He talked about how he had his, the little pocket square. He had the arrow pointing up in it, because that's the direction of where the team is going. Those are the details I'm talking about with Sean Payton. And he wants to win. Like, he wanted to get out of Fox, I think, because he missed winning that badly. So, if you're excited about getting winning football back and hopefully having a winning team for the first time in 7-8 years, well, Sean Payton sounds like the guy for you. Before we go, we got some other news to hit on. As Ian Rappaport tweeted us out during the press conference, which was kind of interesting, that the Broncos are expected to hire Zach Strief as their new offensive line coach. The longtime Saints offensive lineman standout and favorite of Sean Payton, he quickly ascended in the coaching ranks after serving as an assistant offensive line coach, now lands in Denver. So then Nick Underhill, who covers the Saints, does a great job of doing that, quote tweeted that Ian Rappaport tweet and said this: "This is a loss for the coaching staff. Zach Strief is one of the smartest people in the building. So if you're wondering how Saints fans are taking the news, not well, which has to make you feel even better about this because the offensive line last year was a disaster. Moving out from Munchak was a dumb idea. And hopefully now it can get back on track because it was probably the worst part of the team last year, if we're being honest here. Now, if you're not familiar with the new Broncos offensive line coach, allow me to fill you in on his Wikipedia page pretty much here. He was a Saints offensive lineman from 2006 to 2017, in which he played 158 games, and he started 94 of them. He was their offensive line coach and assistant offensive line coach the last 2 seasons, a former 7th-round pick out of Northwestern for New Orleans. He didn't start for the first, pretty much 5-6 years of his career, so he rose the ranks, and to me it tells you he works hard and he knows what he's doing. For a 7th-rounder to stick around that long, it's probably not because of some God-given talent. It's probably because he knows technique and fundamentals quite well, and that's what you want out of a coach here. Now, the Broncos coaching staff is still getting put together here. We don't know the OC yet. We don't know the DC yet. Sounding like Sean Desai is going to be that defensive coordinator. Brian Flores is getting warmer to Arizona for their head coaching gig, and it also seems incredibly awkward if he would have come to Denver after pretty much suing the Broncos in part of his NFL lawsuit. So there's that, but we'll get more updates on the staff as we get them. I appreciate everyone who tuned in and made us a part of your day. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. That way you stay informed on all things Broncos all off season long.